All right, everybody, you are here today for amphibians and snakes of Indiana and their habitat. We're going to learn about the cool creatures that call Indiana home. And this is being put on by Central Chapter of Indiana Native Plant Society. So thank you all for registering and attending. And thank you, Jim, for presenting for us today. Jim Horton is our speaker tonight, and he's a lifelong nature enthusiast. He served on the board of the Hoosier Herpetological, that's a mouthful, Society for 19 years, and he currently serves as president. He's also the editor of the monthly newsletter, The Monitor. Clever name there. Jim gives presentations on Indiana herpetology throughout the state. Jim and his wife, Pam, co-operate Indiana Jim's Reptile Experience, and that's a wildlife education program. His passion, though, goes beyond amphibians and reptiles. He's one of our fine members of Indiana Native Plant Society. He's the co-coordinator of the Central Indiana Frog Watch chapter also. He's also active with Central Indiana Land Trust and on the steering committee for the Boone County Invasive Cooperative. In his free time, he enjoys photography, music, camping, kayaking, botany, ornithology, entomology, and really anything nature related. And so welcome, Jim. We love having you here tonight. And again, before I turn it over to Jim, if you have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and put them in the chat, and please keep yourself muted. And with that, Jim, take it away for us.
All right, thank you, Molly. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of plants. Probably my favorite animals are amphibians and reptiles, and plants would be my next organism, I guess you'd say. I love plants. My yard is full of native plants. And again, I do a lot of volunteering, and I'm a happy member of the Native Plant Society. So yeah, I love plants, and hopefully I'll be able to include a few in here as well. So I've been asked to talk about habitats featuring amphibians and reptiles, and I won't cover all of our amphibians and reptiles, but I'll cover a decent portion of them, because there are an awful lot of them. If we covered all of the amphibians and reptiles of Indiana, we'd probably be 2.5 hours or so into this, but I chose a few, excuse me, that I thought would be interesting, and some of their habitats. We'll get some pictures of the habitats as well and talk a little bit about that. So here we go. Oh, there's my dog shaking. So we'll just move on from here. By the way, the Herpetological Society, we are a nonprofit, just like the Native Plant Society and the Audubon Society. We have monthly meetings every third Wednesday at Holiday Park at 7 p.m. We usually feature a guest speaker or something like that. So we have a lot of outings as well. So it's a fun club to be a part of. We hope you can come check out a meeting or check us out online. So I'm going to go ahead and get moving here, hit the space key, and move on to what we have. Oh, there's the Frog Watch, a little shameless plug that joined the Frog Watch chapter. It's almost a little late to do any Frog Watch volunteering right now, because the last species are starting to breed now, which are bullfrogs and green frogs. But start off next year. It's a great thing to be a part of with citizen science. Okay, so herpetology is the study of amphibian reptiles. So a lot of people just call them herps. So herpetology, we call them herps. So you'll hear me mention that quite a bit, the little acronym there, herps. Okay, so herp habitat is just about everywhere where there's cover, where there's water, where there's food, just like with birds. You can have, let's see, I don't have much of a pointer. There we go, a little pointer here. So we have all the ditches. They're found in ditches. They're found in streams and rivers and sloughs and everything else, fens here and vernal pools in the northern part of our state and the southern part of our state. And of course, you can find many species in meadows and fields as well. Flatwoods, right here where we are in the boring part of Indiana, you can find a few species there. You can find box turtles, pardon me, toads, some salamanders, and eastern garter snakes, things like that. Seepages and springs, we have some of those in the southern part of our state, and over near Madison County. You'll find some species there that really do quite well and are quite endemic to that type of environment there, which are springs, natural springs. Of course, the beautiful cypress swamps in Posey County down there in the southern part of our state, absolutely beautiful. And one of our most recent species to be discovered in Indiana was found down here. It is Ambystom metapodium, which is the, oh my gosh, it is called the thinking of it right now. I can't get the common name. It's a salamander, and I did not even feature it in here. I'll think of it. I'll get back with you in just a moment. But it's a salamander that was just found. It's one of our mole salamanders, probably about 15 years ago. And of course, the sand prairies up in the Kankakee region and up in northern Indiana, just some beautiful, gorgeous land that we have here in our state. And this just kind of, I should have had this first here. Of going again, we have the lake region up there with the Kettle Lakes and the bogs and some of the beautiful landscapes up there. The Central Plains where we are, and of course down in the southern area where you'll find all kinds of beautiful hill regions and different species that are found down there. So the two arrows are where we're at here, right here in boring central Indiana. But you can find some neat species here as well. Okay, I won't cover all the frogs and toads of Indiana, but we do have about 13 or so species here in the state. I just thought I'd throw that in there for fun. This is more of an educational thing. Most people know that toads are after they metamorphose into from a tadpole to the terrestrial stage, they're going to typically be on land. They have dry, bumpy skin. They hop rather than leaping like frogs, and they lay their eggs in strings rather than in masses like frogs do. So yeah, that's the difference between frogs and toads. One of them, after it metamorphoses, lives in the water or near water. That's a frog. And toads live pretty much on land after they metamorphose. Here are some egg masses of frogs and salamanders. You can see the little salamander egg masses right here in the hand. Those are getting ready to pop out. You can see the little gills, external gills on this species here, and they will metamorphose into a terrestrial stage just like a tadpole. These here on the left are wood frog eggs, and wood frogs breed very, very early in the early spring, pre-spring. And we have a mix here on the bottom right of salamander and frog egg masses. Okay, so amphibians obviously go through a metamorphosis stage here. These are frog tadpoles here. Those are green frogs. They go through the metamorphosis stage, and they need places like this. This is a vernal pool here. This is a part of a BioBlitz I was just helping out with up in Eagle Marsh in Fort Wayne, and we found this vernal pool and searched it, found some amphibian larvae there. So amphibians, most of them metamorphose into adulthood, but not all of them do. Some salamanders are born on land without an egg, without metamorphosis. But most of them rely on a water source like this that dries up in the summertime and doesn't allow fish to inhabit that water, because fish will eat their eggs, and these amphibians know this. So they look for habitats like this, these little woodland pools that dry up. Here's some more really cool habitat. This is, hey, hush, puppy, hush. Okay, up here in the left top, somebody is walking across the sidewalk here, and my dog's not too happy with it. Okay. On the top left, this is, I believe this is Hoosier National Forest. You'll find different salamanders there. Of course, long-tailed salamanders, green frogs are pretty common there. Green salamanders are found way up in these sandstone rocks and these little fissures here. You find them, they're pretty rare in our state. They're only found in 2 counties way down near the Ohio River. Here's some more of these areas where dusky salamanders can be found. They like fresh water and springs and things like that. And of course, chorus frogs love pools like this. This is early March, and you get an open field, and it flows with water, and chorus frogs absolutely are everywhere. And four-toed salamanders like an area like this in the very bottom where you have trees, and near the bottom of the base of the stump you have moss growing there. So these are great habitats for different species. So we're going to move on to toads, the toads of Indiana. We have 2 types of toads. We have the Fowler's toad right here and the American toad. So the difference between the two is this Fowler's toad is typically kind of grayish or tan or light with these dark patches. There we go. Little dark blotches or patches on the back. And if you see the little dots, the little warts inside these patches, if you have 2 or more, then you know it's a Fowler's toad. They typically have 2 or more of those little warts on their back there inside those dark blotches. Okay. And they have an interesting little call. Let's see if I can get this going. I don't know if you can hear that, but it doesn't sound a lot like a frog or a toad. It kind of sounds like a sheep, right? Yeah, so it's interesting to hear these, especially if you hear about 20 of them going off. And they inhabit ag fields and places like that during the early spring, flooded ag fields. Pretty neat. Here's another one showing those dark blotches there on the back with the little warts in each blotch there. So that is indeed a Fowler's toad. Here's the American toad. You can see they're a little bit different, the coloration. They're kind of a brick red color there, or they can be brown, dark brown, or even tan in color. But they don't have a lot of huge blotches, dark blotches with color in them. They do have some. But their call is a little bit lighter. It's kind of a beautiful, something like that. See if I can get it going. There's another one. Is it not going to work? Like that. That's a tough one. That's a little bit loud. Their call is a little bit more soothing than that. That recording isn't the best. This is one I took at Eagle Creek Park. This was a male getting ready to call. You can see he's getting ready to exhale there, expand his throat region there and make that call like that, which I can't do right now. I can usually do frog and toad calls, but right now I'm not able to do it. But yeah, American toads are wonderful little species. Here are the two of them together, the Fowler's on the right. You can see the difference in a little bit of coloration. And of course, you can see the dark little blotches on the back there. Also, all of our toads have these on the back. These are called parotoid glands. You can see right behind the head, right behind the eyes. Those are parotoid glands. That is where their poison is. So that's what protects them, because toads, frogs, and other amphibians really don't have any. They don't have any claws. They don't have tough skin, or really any teeth to speak of. So they have to protect themselves in way of being toxic. And if you ever see a dog foaming at the mouth in your yard or somewhere, it's probably bitten into a toad, because it'll get them really, really sick. So toads, their venom, their poison go into work there. And this one is an interesting one. It's not really a toad, and it's not really a frog. It lands somewhere in between. It's Scaphiochus holbrookii, better known as the eastern spadefoot. And there are several spadefoot species out west, out in the western United States. They live in the deserts, so about a foot below the desert. They rely on torrential rainfall to get them up, and the same here in Indiana. This little fella here, they're about the size of, maybe that big, and smaller. They're wonderful. They have smooth skin like a frog and a little bit of warty like a toad. They're built rather stout and chubby like a toad. They have elliptical eyes. This one is not too elliptical. The iris is there. They're really interesting, and their call is kind of like a wah, just like that. Wah. Yeah, and they only come up during torrential rainfall to breed and feed. So they spend the majority of their lives below the surface, and they live in floodplains in Indiana. So again, flooded ag fields and places like that is where you'll find these. They're found, the most northern range is around just a little bit south of Columbus, and anywhere south of there, you'll start to find these. And yes, on rainy nights, I'll drive all the way down to Columbus with some buddies with our cameras and get pictures of this one. And this one was about 3 weeks ago, as a matter of fact. So wonderful. So now we'll look at the family Hylidae, which are the tree frogs in Indiana. We have 2 or 3 little ones that you'll be familiar with, like this one, the chorus frog. Chorus frogs inhabit lots of somewhat woods, but mostly field type situations. But you can see this one, this male here, calling on the left side, is blended in quite well with the dead vegetation there. Even on the back, dorsally and on the sides, you can see he's got the pattern that really blends in with this decaying vegetation matter. And they frequent flooded ag fields too. And I've seen them in ag fields. I've seen them in meadows and all kinds of different abandoned fields as well. As long as it fills with water, that is temporary, they'll be there. And those are their eggs. They attach their eggs to vegetation at the center of the water source, the deepest area, so the eggs do not float away and dry up. Yeah, they know what they're doing. And their call, let's see if I can get this call going. So you probably heard this one before. People say that's very similar to taking like a man's comb and running your fingers across it. These are really early breeders. They'll breed in early March, sometimes late February. So that is the little western chorus frog. Spring peeper, that's the next little tiny species. They're only, again, a little bit over an inch long, and they are what I call the harbinger of spring. If you think about the robins in Indiana, people think the robins are the first animals to come back to tell you spring is here. in my opinion, it's this little frog right here. These are the little species that are hanging down, hunkering down in Indiana forests through the tough winters. And they know, in my opinion, when it's time to come up. Because when I hear them, or when you hear them, you know spring is well on its way, right? This is a male. And all of our frogs and toads, only the males call. They're calling, obviously, to attract females. So, and you can see there's a little bit of yellow flashing under the back legs of this little frog, telling you, excuse me, or letting predators know they are not tasty, right? They're not tasty. And let's see, there's another one. That's a spring peeper. And if you get around it, you can see all the little species in that pond, all kinds of invertebrates. You get around about 20 or 30 or 40 of these things calling. It is deafening. It is really difficult to hear your friends around the ponds. Okay, and the cricket frog is our third little tiny species that you'll find in Indiana. And these are breeding right now. They usually start in mid-April to May when they breed. And you'll hear them making a kind of a call like that. They're really tiny. They hop around the edges of marshes, ponds, and creeks. And they do look like little bugs, little insects. If you're walking around and you see them darting around, they do look like insects. There's quite a variety of pattern and color in this species. Some of them are just brown, and this one I didn't see it until it moved, until it hopped, because it blended in really well in that mud flat there. You'll see them with oranges and some dark reds and greens. This is some of the habitat you'll find them in. A lot of different species can be found in this, where the duckweed is everywhere here, but you'll find them on the very edges and the shallows of this type of habitat. Here's one calling here, if I can get it going. Very familiar with hearing that, I'm sure, in the spring and early summer. That wasn't very long there. See if I can get that going. Yeah, it sounds like you're just clanging two marbles together. That's what these sound like. One more time. Yeah, they're really cute. So that's the Blanchard's cricket frog. This is our larger tree frog. They're calling in my backyard right now, and they might be in yours as well. It's the gray tree frog, and there's a lot to say about gray tree frogs. They're absolutely beautiful in every way. They have that really cool call. That sounds a lot better than that. This one on the very bottom is what we call a froglet. Froglets are born, they metamorphose from their tadpole stage, and they're typically always green with gray tree frogs. And again, gray tree frogs can turn green. They have the ability to be green, gray, tan, dark tan, brownish, but typically they're gray. But they're absolutely beautiful. And I have another one here showcasing their little toe pads. They have really big toe pads on the end of their toes, and they can stick to just about any object. And they're not really smooth skin like most frogs. They do have a little mottling and a little bit of a sandpapery rough feel to them, but they do have some yellow flashing back there under their legs, their back legs under here. You can't see it real well, but if you see one stretched out, you'll see the yellow flashing there. That is a warning sign for predators that they do not taste good. I found that out a different way. I picked one up and put it on a log to get a photograph of it. And a little while later, I rubbed my eyes and it stung really bad. So that's just their toxins going to work. It's not really dangerous to people, but you don't want to get it in your mouth, and you don't want to get it in your mucous membranes, that's for sure. Here's their call, and here's where they're found. So the gray tree frog, there's two species. There's a gray tree frog, and there is a Cope's gray tree frog. Both look identical, absolutely identical. Only thing different is their DNA and their call, and of course where they're found. So it's a gray tree frog. There's a Cope's gray frog there's a Cope's with that high pitch. But the slower one is a gray tree frog. Okay, that's a great. This was a Cope's gray tree frog here. Yeah, it's kind of a higher pitch. And you can see on the state map there, they are found, in the lower half of Indiana. And the gray tree frogs are found right about where we are here in central Indiana and on farther north. Here's one just was in my backyard, and I happened to just see this one right there on this young, whatever that tree is in my yard. But yeah, they blend in really well, and they'll hunker down in the middle of the day in the sun in areas like this. So sometimes on leaves, usually taking cover, but this one was right here on the north side of this tree. So they're really, really neat. Oh, this is one letting me know that it's done with pictures. It's like they put their heads down and cover their vitals, and they put their back end up there, and letting you know he's done. So I let this little fella go. You can see the yellow flashing and the rump and the back end here and over here. So letting you know they don't taste good. Yeah. Here's our other tree frog. This is one that's often confused in Indiana between the gray and the green. These are green all the time. And these are only found in Indiana along the Posey County, Vandenberg County, places like that. They were recently discovered by us, the Herpetological Society. We were doing a program down in Wesselman Woods Nature Center a couple of years ago, long time ago. And the naturalist told me he heard this weird frog calling, and he says, "What's it sound like?" And he's like, "Meow, meow, meow." That's a green tree frog. So that was really neat. They were always found in Kentucky in the Henderson region, but they were never recorded in Indiana. So they are starting to move north, apparently. Nate Ainbreaker, our state herpetologist, has been doing work with these and studying them along with Michael Dotto. And they're finding that they are starting to move northward, which is really cool. But this is typically a coastal species. You usually find them in Florida and Alabama and Carolinas, places like that. But here in Indiana, yeah, they're found here now. They're absolutely beautiful. They're usually going to be a beautiful emerald green like this with a white stripe going from the mouth all the way to the rump with no modeling or any pattern like that. So beautiful tree frogs. I wish they were a little closer to me or to us so we could see and hear them, but they're not. Let's see. There's another one. Absolutely gorgeous frogs. Just beautiful. And most people hear these in Florida. You hear that in Florida, but don't hear them in Indiana unless you live in the southern part of our state. Move on to some our larger frogs. Ranidae is the family of the big frogs, like the green frogs, the bullfrogs, and the leopard frogs, right? This is a southern leopard. Looks very similar to the northern leopard. They both are found in different portions of our state. Of course, the southern leopard is in northern. Both of them meet right about here in central Indiana, so it can be difficult to key them out. Southerns, a lot of times, will have, like this one, a lot of green on top and some grayish coloration on the sides there. And they don't have a lot of, in their pattern, they don't have a lot of rings around them, and I'll show you that on the other species here. But the tympanum, the eardrum there, they usually have a large white spot in the center, and this one's really not showcasing it very well, but they usually have a larger white dot right there in the tympanum. There's another one, showcasing what a typical southern leopard frog looks like. And here are their eggs. And they will lay eggs sometimes in little creeks, but typically not because there's fish in there. But we found these, we were backpacking in Hoosier National Forest, and there was a little area where the creek was dried up, but there's a little bit of water retaining, and we found these eggs, and we heard the female calling, or the male calling, excuse me. Here's what they sound like. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so they make kind of groaning noises, and that little laughing thing is, hopefully I can get moving without that right now. No, let's move on. Okay, here's the northern leopard frog. Absolutely gorgeous. Their colors and their patterns are variable. I've seen them gray. I've seen them, typically they're green, but sometimes they can be gray, tannish in color. But they have large blotches on their back there. You can see a little bit of white in the eardrum, but not a lot. There should be a better picture of this one. There's a tan species there, but they usually have a little bit of white halo around all their spots there, little light colored halos. You'll usually know you have a northern leopard frog just by that alone. And their call is kind of a weird little snore. Doesn't even sound like a frog. And if you've ever seen the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think that's where they got this. Guessing. Usually these start to call in March. Pretty neat. Okay, here's a typical area. This is a dried up area. This is a Central Indiana Land Trust property that I help monitor. This is dried up in the summertime here, but there's typically water here, and these are grassy emergent type wetlands, and this is where you'll find them. And as a matter of fact, I lifted a few logs and found leopard frogs here. So they do like grassy type situations for breeding and feeding. Here's a pickerel frog that looks very, very similar to a leopard frog, but their blotches are more squarish. They're larger and kind of squarish, right? And they have lots of yellow at the base of their legs there, in the front and rear legs, letting you know they are extremely toxic. This frog here is really toxic. It can really probably put you in a hospital. I mean, they're well protected. Their call is kind of a meow. If I can get it going. It sounds like a little race car or something. Pretty neat. So that's a pickerel frog. Sometimes they're found in the twilights of caves and places like that. Here's another one showing not really round blotches, but pretty large blotches there. Okay. And this is the wood frog. It's another species of the true frogs. It's actually Lithobates, not Rana anymore. Lithobates is the genus. I failed to change that. This is a species that lives in deep woods in the Hoosier National Forest, Morgan Monroe, places like that. And they're at home in the woods. One of our only frogs that lives in the woods, right? And they inhabit the woodland areas there. And they have a huge range from Indiana all the way up to Alaska. And this is the species that can freeze solid in the winter and come back to life in the spring. They have a natural, antifreeze, if you will, in their bloodstream, thus allows them to come back to life and thaw out. It's really incredible. They typically are going to be this color here, kind of a tan coloration, but they always have a patch right near their eye, a little robber's mask, if you will. So pretty cool. There's one here. I was working at helping with an eco blitz in Morgan Monroe Forest, and I didn't even see it until it moved. It's right here. You can see how well they blend in with the decaying leaf matter there. So really neat species. I think I might have a video of these guys calling. There's a male. And you can see where they get most of their sound is right along their sides, where the air picks up and they create a funnel of the noise that they make there, a little bit under their chin. But these frogs and leopard frogs all have expand and get their audible calls from their sides there. If I can get this going, this is McCormick's Creek State Park. Poor place has had a rough time lately. These are all wood frogs. This is at the campground. This is a vernal pool that dries up every summer. Lousy cinematography there, but yeah, they'll call in the daytime. And they have a really pretty funny call, but I'm going to keep moving because we don't have a lot of time here. This is the northern crawfish frog, still under the true frogs, the Lithobates genus here. This is a really neat one that's endangered in our state, and it's had a rough time for some reason, probably due to habitat loss. They're about the size of a small bullfrog, pretty good size species. I've only seen one in my time of looking for them and photographing them. They live in crawfish burrows. You can see this one right here on the left. It's really rare in our state, and they live in crawfish burrows. They overwinter in crawfish burrows, and they feed in crawfish burrows. And you can see in Andrew Hoffman's photo here on the left, there's one sitting there in a little, what they call a feeding pad, a little feeding platform. They are ambush predators, and they wait for inverts, small rodents and things like that to come by, and then they just gobble them right up. So really cool species. Sorry about all that. And this is actually the Kankakee here, but they like open grassland areas like this, but they're not found in the Kankakee. They're found in the southern part of our state, but they do like open grasslands here. This is the green frog, and in my opinion, the most common species of frog in our state, bar none. You'll find these everywhere in the state, even in a mud hole or a tire rut. You'll find them hopping in and breeding. They're very opportunistic breeders and will live just about anywhere. So they are a game species. You can take up to 25 of these a day if you so desire and make dinner out of them. And I just photograph them and listen to them. See if I can get them going. This is typically what they look like. And they have that kind of noise. Very familiar. If you spend any time outside, you'll know this call. Okay, so typically they're olive color like this on an olive background with a little bit of greenish on the top near the head there. And you can see they have ridges, lateral ridges on each side of their back going down from the head to the tail. And you won't see that in bullfrogs. That's the difference between these two, really, is that. Let's go. This is some of the habitat. This is West Park and Carmel, but you'll find them in areas like this. inhabiting little backwood areas here that are flooded among the cattails and the pickerelweed, just waiting for food to come along. Yeah, and calling as well, waiting for mates. So they'll inhabit just about anywhere. This is the bullfrog. North American bullfrog is an opportunistic feeder as well. They'll eat just about anything smaller than they are, anything. As a matter of fact, they've been released intentionally or unintentionally out in the western United States, and they're eating everything in sight, including other frogs like the yellow-legged frogs and some of the frogs and even small turtles. They'll take anything. There's a male there on the top right with the yellow chin. Males have a yellow chin. They get huge, people. They get really, really big. And I often find them in the middle of the road, like I did with some of these, and I get to hush them out the road there. But interesting species all the same. And they have that kind of a call there. If I can get that going, everybody knows a bullfrog, right? It's just another lovely sound to hear in the summer, in the dead of summer, like we have right now. That's a bullfrog. It's another big one that I found in the road, scurried it off the road there. And okay guys, and you'll find them in places like this, just about anywhere where there's water, but there's good cover, and they'll be hanging out in the daytime or in the evening as well. Plenty of duckweed, plenty of cover there. But I see them in ponds and creeks and even some small rivers. Okay, salamanders, I won't go through all this, but we have about 23 species or so in our state. Most of these right here are found right here in central Indiana. Those in purple are probably pretty common right here in central Indiana. And the plethodons we'll look at are the lungless ones. They're the more the smaller species that don't go through metamorphosis. These are the species that are born from their parents and look just like tiny versions, miniature versions of the adults. This is the four-toed salamander. They're really small. They're just cute as can be. I do have a better picture. I failed to put it up here, but they do have little tiny toes. It's the only salamander in Indiana that has that black and white speckling on the belly there on the underside. These little salamanders inhabit flooded woodlands that have the base of the trees with moss growing around them, and they lay their eggs underneath that moss. It's very, very cool. Just like this. Excuse me. So this is the typical temporary woodland situations where they will breed in the springtime, and they'll lay their eggs under that moss, and they will guard them until that water rises and the eggs can start to fall into the water and start to develop rather quickly. Pretty neat. This is the two-line salamander, really, really common, even around here and some of the parks around here. I've found them in Starkey Park in Zionsville. I've found them in small creeks by lifting rocks in places like, oh gosh, even Holiday Park, places like that. Quite common under flat rocks, and they lay their eggs under those big flat rocks too. They adhere them underneath the rocks so that they don't wash away, and they can develop there. It's really neat. Cute little species, only about maybe 3 inches long. Oh, here's their eggs. Lifted up a big rock, and I found the eggs clinging to the bottom there. Yeah, so they'll develop there until they hatch out. And yeah, those are the two lines. And this is the redback salamander, very similar in size to the two-line salamander, only about 3 inches at best. It's a woodland species, and you'll find these just about anywhere where you find nice, rich woodland areas with fallen logs. They're tiny, not even as thin as a not even thin as a pin, or they're really small. They almost look like little worms if you roll up a log and look at them, and you'll see little creatures with little tiny legs, and they're probably the most common salamander in the Midwest. They're really, really common. Most of us have found these as kids growing up, and I still find them now. Okay, there's a grayback version, which I failed to put a picture of on here, but this is the redback. Has a nice red stripe going dorsally around the back, but there's a lead phase, a grayback lead phase that is almost the color of the sides here throughout. Okay, just like this all over. So you'll find those too. Okay, and this is a really neat one that I don't think there's any in Marion County, but they do venture up this way. It's called the slimy salamander for good reason, and the species name glutinosis is great too, because when this animal gets really upset with you, have had enough handling or whatever you're doing, they'll release this really white, milky, sticky stuff on the back of their tail there, and it will not come off. It will not come off with soap. It won't come off with anything, or maybe gasoline or thyme. It's a great species name, glutinosis, because it's a gluey white milky substance that will probably taste really bad. I've never tasted it, but it's a great deterrent. So these things are woodland species. They like to live in rich ravines, places. Oh, there's another one there. We put this one out on a rock for a photograph there. Areas like this is where they like to be, right? Where there's plenty of ferns. I see some familiar wild, things like Solomon seal and things like that there, and trilliums. So they live under the leaf litter and most notably under fallen logs. They can range to be about 7 inches in length, so it's one of our largest plethodon species. This is a really neat one too. It's one of our 2 orangish colored salamanders. This is the long-tailed salamander. It looks very similar to the cave salamanders. And you can find these underneath flat rocks too, in places like McCormick's Creek and some of those rocky streams is where these animals favor. They favor rocky streams. They're a little bit different from a cave salamander by looking at their, if I can get this pointer to work, look at their tail. They have vertical bars going all the way up there, vertical bars. Cave salamanders do not. Cave salamanders pretty much have all dots or spots, if you will, and not vertical bars on the tail like this. So that is the long-tail salamander. They get larger than the 2 little ones we looked at, the redbacks. These can get about 4 inches, maybe 5 inches. And here's some of their habitat, right? This is McCormick's Creek right there, I believe. And yeah, look underneath some of these rocks that might be in or out, halfway in and out of the water. You'll find them typically pretty easily. This is the cave salamander, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I've seen better looking photographs than these here that I've taken, but yeah, they're usually a rich orange with little black speckles all over them. And again, at the base of the tail of this one, you will not see vertical bars. It's pretty much spots and blotches going all the way through. They inhabit caves. They're one of the species you can find in Indiana almost year-round. So if you want to venture out and look for salamanders in December and January, you can do that below ground and probably end up finding some of these. They have really flat heads, and they're built for moving in and out of cracks and crevices. So really, really neat species. This is the northern dusky salamander. This is one that really, really likes to stay wet, and they like to stay in cool, spring-fed little trickle or brooks, if you will, springs. Yeah, most of these species are found in the Appalachians. 7, 8, maybe 10 or 12 species in the Appalachians. Here in Indiana, we have one. We have the northern dusky. They're incredibly slippery, incredibly wet, really difficult to get a hold of to photograph. They're like a fish. They move really fast. When you see them lift up a rock, they'll just wiggle down the little brook, and it's very difficult. They're kind of chunky. They have a little white patch there right under their eye. And the closest I've seen these is Morgan Monroe Forest and some of the rocky habitats there. Kind of like this right here. This is Morgan Monroe Forest. Under these large rocks like these that are on the sides that are really close to the water, they'll hang out underneath these rocks where it's nice and cool. Good cool water for this species. So now we'll look at this mole salamanders, what we call the ambystoma or ambystoma, however you want to pronounce it. These are the lunged salamanders. They have lungs, they breathe air, unlike the last ones we saw. And we have the marbled salamander here. This is a species that breeds in the fall. It's one of our only species in Indiana that breeds in the fall. So it gets a head start from all the other salamanders. Most all of them breed in the springtime. These breed in the fall. Look how beautiful these are. Absolutely gorgeous. It's a woodland species as well. They're at home in rich ravines and wooded properties, if you will. This is a male. The males are a little bit brighter in color. They're about 4 inches in length. This species does like to inhabit woodland vernal pools where they will lay their eggs underneath on the edges of the water and curl them up and guard them until spring rain comes along and allows them to fall into the water, and they quickly develop. So very, very cool species there. Here's one just in a pose that's letting you know it's not happy. They put their tail up, and that's what some of their toxins are. Put their head, their vital organs down, and that's an unhappy salamander right there. We have 2 others, the spotted salamander and the blue spotted. Blue spotted is a species of special concern in Indiana. This is one of the prettiest ones I've seen. Blue spotteds are maybe 4 inches or so. They're not very large. They're found in the northern part of our state. Their habitat includes swampy areas with lots of fallen logs that are really rotting in the rotting stage, decomposition. And the spotted salamanders are found pretty much statewide, but most of them I see are in the southern part of our state. They get to be about 6 inches or more. They're incredibly, really cool. Here's a bunch of them in Yellowwood Forest, and they breed usually in March, early March. These are all males swirling around in a vernal pool, waiting for a female. Whoops. Here is a Jefferson salamander. It's also an early breeder. They do not care how cold it is. These get to be about 6 inches as well. We've seen these in late January when there's ice on the ponds. You'll see them crawling across the ponds trying to get in and find an open area. So they are early breeders, very cold tolerant, pretty nondescript, just kind of a grayish color species, but they are a woodland salamander, and you will rarely see them unless you're going to find them during the breeding season. Here's another one. This is actually a gorgeous picture of Texanum, which is the smallmouth salamander. You can see the difference in his little snout there. Oops, they got a little tiny snout right in front of the eyes there. Hence the name, common name, smallmouth salamander. They're typically dark in coloration, but this one really lightened up for photographs here. That's another woodland species that utilizes vernal pools, right? Those temporary vernal pools. This is the most common of the mole salamanders in the state, in my opinion. I find these everywhere, even right here in central Indiana. So really cool to find these. We have a coverboard project going on at a local park, and we find these regularly. Okay, here's what their eggs look like. And again, they are 7 or 8, 10 of them in a little blotch, little masses, and they attach them to fallen vegetation. So they stay submerged, and they stay nice and secure in that pond so they don't float away. Okay, and our largest of the land-dwelling salamanders, the tiger salamander, is really cool. These get really big. Look at the size. Whoops, look at the size of the larval stage there. It's huge. They're really big. They're incredible. You can see this one's out of the water, but you can see that these little fluffy gills are how they take in oxygen when they're in the water, but they lose those when they start to develop into the land stages, which is what these are. Excuse me, there's a nice big one there. These get to be about 12 inches in length. They get huge. They inhabit fields and meadows, underground, of course. Most all of our salamanders, excuse me, are subterranean, fossorial. They don't like to be out here in the daylight because it's just not good for them. They'll dry up. They are soft. They're a bit slimy and wet. They like cool, dark, damp conditions. And yeah, these are one of our few species of salamanders that live in meadows, in fields and things like that. They live in rodent burrows, and they do some burrowing themselves too. Do quite a bit of burrowing, so they're really impressive, and they eat whatever, just like the bullfrogs, they'll eat whatever is smaller than they are. Okay, just threw those in there. There's some more egg messes. Okay, that one I picked up out and took a photograph there, and you can see the moon in the background. Yeah, I quickly put that back in the water, but those are salamander young. Okay, and we have newts in Indiana. We have one species, the red spotted, or they also call it the central newt. And newts are a little different from salamanders, basically due to their lifestyle. And they also inhabit vernal pools. This is a male. You can see the reproductive organs there at the base of the tail. Males in the breeding season develop big back legs and a big fan tail, so they can move through that water quickly, find a female, and grasp her with those legs. But they're really cool. Their life cycle is different from a regular salamander because newts are born, they go through the transition or metamorphosis onto land, and on land they turn into this, which is called a red eft. It's a land of dry species. It's got a really dry feel to it, and they live on land for about 2 years, and they go back into the water and turn into the adult. So it's an interesting little life cycle that newts go through. By the way, this bright orange salamander here, this land stage, is letting you know it's incredibly toxic, right? Here's an adult male without those really big legs. Well, this one does have some legs that are getting thicker here, but this is toward the end of the breeding season. But those are the eastern newts, or red-spotted newts. Oh, here's one, if I can get this going. Trying to tackle an earthworm that's much bigger than it is. Oh no! it didn't work. I'm not going to go back because I don't want to go through this again, but it was trying to tackle that earthworm that is no way it was going to get it, but it was an interesting video all the same. So we have 2 species of salamanders here in Indiana that are strictly aquatic. And this is one of them. This is the mud puppy. And here's what it looks like in the water on the left. You can see the external gills that are permanent on the species. And here they are with it in your hand here. We don't keep them out of the water too long. They can breathe air. They do go up for air, but majority of their respiration is from these external gills. These are about 1 foot long in length. They like cool water. They're found in rivers, creeks, and lakes. And they're active in usually around, their breeding season is around January. Really cool, really nice big salamanders. I've only seen one in the field in Indiana. Here's a siren. I'm sorry, it's a lousy picture of a siren, but a siren is another, I mentioned there were 2, there are 3 aquatic salamanders. And a siren is a species that's looks a little bit like an eel. It does have the external gills as well, but you can't see it here too well. They have 2 tiny front limbs. You can't see them very easily here either, and no back limbs, but their limbs are almost useless. These are found in Southwest and Northwest Indiana in sloughs and places like that. They like ditches, roadside ditches with plenty of vegetation. These can be about 2 feet in length. They're pretty neat, look like a big eel. And I failed to mention the coolest one. I didn't mention that. They're not found in central Indiana, but the hellbender is our largest salamander, the largest salamander in the United States. I'm sorry, I forgot to put that one in here. It's an aquatic species. So we'll just keep on rolling through here so we have time. The reptiles, I'm going to go through as quick as I can because you guys had questions, leaving time for the questions. Lizards and skinks, we have 6 species of lizards in our state. 2 of them are found right here. 2 of the skinks are found right here in central Indiana. And the 5-line skink is probably the most common of our 3 species of skinks, and 2 that are found here in central Indiana. You can see the bright orange juvie there on the right, on the top right. They have beautiful black background with those 5 yellow lines. That's why they call it the 5-line skink, and a gorgeous blue tail. You can see the female. The females sometimes with their eggs, sometimes they retain their coloration, sometimes they don't. Here's a female on the right. She's gravid with the eggs, and a male on the left there. So sometimes they retain those stripes, and sometimes they don't. But these are quite common, little insectivores, and they inhabit open woodlands. Okay, the broadhead skink is the largest lizard in Indiana. I don't have the best pictures of these. You can see how big their head is there. This is a big male, and their heads are just like this. The males develop this bright red head in the springtime when breeding season is going on. This is a pair, male and female there. These get to be about 12 inches in length, tail from snout to tail, and these are quick to take to a tree if they see you. So they inhabit trees and fallen trees and things like that. So they'll take on large insects, maybe small tiny rodents and things like that too, and other lizards and frogs and everything else that'll fit in their mouth. This gets a little technical. This is how you tell between a broadhead and a 5-line skink. When you have 2 of them side by side, you count those labial scales there, but I won't keep you there. But that's a lot. Not too many people have a good picture like this of both of them to find up side by side. Other species, we'll talk about a couple of these that you can find in Indiana. This one on the right, on the bottom, is the ground skink. That's our 3rd skink in Indiana. These are found in the southern part of our state. That is a large one in the hand. My hand, they are not very big. They're quite small. And the other 2 we'll talk about in more here. The 6-line race runner on the bottom left. Those are found in the Kankakee region and up near the dunes. And of course, this is really cool spiny. I can't even read the top there, but Scoloporus is a species of spiny lizard. They are found in southern Indiana. It's a fence lizard. Okay, and here's where you'll find. This is the dunes. This is the Kankakee. Open sand blowouts and places like that. This is where you'll find the 6-line race runner. They love heat. They love a lot of sun, and they like areas like this. This is a lizard, not a snake. It's a really cool one. There's about 5 or 6 species in North America of legless lizards. They call them glass lizards because their tails will break off if you pick them up, or if they're it's kind of a defense. They will easily lose their tail in a defensive situation. They're really, really cool. They are indeed lizards. They have eyelids that they can open and close. They have ears. Oops, there's a mosquito in here. They have ears, unlike snakes, and their typical feels nothing like a snake. They don't have stretchy skin. They have this really odd plate-like skin, and you can kind of see it on the bottom right there. So really neat species. These are found up in that Kankakee region, and it's a real treat to see them. Their habitat would be grassy, open fields and plains, things like that. And they are insectivores. Their length is probably about 2 feet from head to tail. Here again is the Kankakee, and that's where you'll find those. I love the Kankakee region. I'm sure some of you do as well. I love to go up and see the lupines and some of those really cool plants that are found up there. This is that little spiny lizard I told you about, the fence lizard. I'm seeing more and more of these on Facebook page, and people don't know what they have, but it's a resident of Indiana, the southern part of our state. I find these typically around Monroe County and on south. This one is a male. The males have these bright blue colors on the belly and under their chin. I have another picture somewhere. They're really, really, really cool, pretty little insectivores found they like dry, open habitats with plenty of fallen trees, like on the edges of, say, Monroe Reservoir, where you have a lot of driftwood type situations. That's where I find these. Really cute little lizards. Move on to the snakes. I have several here that are found in central Indiana. The Kirtland snake there in the red is an endangered species. That's one the Herp Society is really rooting for to get. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But yeah, we have quite a few snakes in Indiana. The state here, we have about 32 species of snakes in our state. Habitat includes, again, just about anywhere where they can find cover and get away from predators, get away from the weather, get some shut-eye, if you will. That's a little copperhead on the left there. In a rocky situation. That's where they like to be, but not always. Fallen logs are great. If you can find an area where they've recently done some logging and they push up these fallen logs in a big pile that are unused, wildlife will use it, including timber rattlesnakes and things like that. This is a great place. It looks like just a bunch of pile of refuge to most, but to herpetologists and people like me, this is where you find snakes. They love fallen buildings with tin around the perimeter there. This provides perfect habitat. Rodents can be found here making nests, which is great food for snakes and other animals. This stuff warms up because when these animals wake up, they need to thermoregulate because they are cold-blooded. So they find an area like this, you can find them pretty readily if you lift. If you're looking for snakes, that's what you look for, right? Places like this is a rodent burrow, but you can find different species that utilize rodent burrows. Okay, this is a cute little snake called a worm snake. It looks like a worm, it behaves like a worm, and it eats worms. It's only about 7 inches long, southern Indiana. This is real common right here in central Indiana. It's called the northern brown snake, Historia DKI. They call it the decay snake. Really, really common here in open areas. Here's another ringneck snake. It's quite secretive, beautiful yellow belly, a little ring around the neck. They're found in little damp areas anywhere in Indiana, areas like that under fallen logs, right? This is the Kirtland snake. It's a beautiful little species that's only found in the Midwest. Their largest range is right here in Indiana. I'd love to tell you more, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, there's another Kirtland. They'll flatten their in defense. They'll flatten their whole body out into a ribbon and just try to spook you. Garter snakes, super common everywhere in Indiana, very, very, very common, right? You'll find them in just about any open area in fields, right? There's another garter. They're quite variable in color and pattern. There's another one. Ribbon snakes look like garter snakes. They look a lot like garters. They have a little patch right in front of their eye, a little white patch, and they're quite brightly, vividly colored and thinner than garter snakes. And they live in swampy areas. They like to hang out in trees and thickets, areas like this, right? This is the rough green snake, and it's hanging out in no-no land, right? It's in multiflora rows, but that's where they like to be. They like to be in thickets and areas like that. They're about as thick as a pencil, maybe about 2 feet long. They're insectivores. They're found in the southern part of our state, and they're absolutely gorgeous. Milk snakes, really, really pretty, active in the crepuscular and activity, found all over the state. Non-venomous, of course, absolutely beautiful when they're little. This is the hognose snake. A lot of these can fuse with venomous species, and they are not venomous, but they will flatten their heads out and they'll try to scare you. And they'll play dead like this one here. It's not dead, it's feigning death. They will do a really cool display for you. Water snakes in Indiana, I could talk for a long time on water snakes because almost all of our water snakes are non-venomous species. This is the northern or banded water snake, probably the most common snake in our state. You'll find them everywhere. Everywhere. You'll find them just about in every kind of water source. You'll find water snakes. They eat fish. They're not dangerous unless you're a fish. And they do a lot of basking like this, right? A lot of basking on stumps and logs and thickets, or places like this. There's another one. I threw a lot of water snakes in there. Queen snakes are almost water snakes. They're not true water snakes, but they are found near water. That's a little blurry picture. They eat nothing more than fresh molted crawfish or crawdads. That's all they eat. So they're a specialized feeder. This is their habitat. Okay. This is a black racer. Black racers are patterned as little babies, but as they grow into adults, they look like this, and they are a little feisty. I call them not aggressive, but defensive, right? This is a fox snake, one of 2 species of rat snakes in Indiana. This is the gray rat snake that's been featured all over on social media. Everybody's wondering what they've got. There's a baby one, and the larger ones start to lose a little of their color. This is a big one. These can get to be about 6 feet in length. Really, really big, and they climb trees, and they overwinter in trees. Oh, we'll run into these real quick. The venomous species, you can see the copperhead has an interesting range that runs a little bit up into Park County. It's our least venomous species, if you will, but it is indeed venomous. This species probably is no longer found in the state. It's the cottonmouth, and there's a lot of arguments whether this is here or not, but most people, including the DNR and other researchers and myself, have not seen these in the state. They haven't found them in over 20 years or longer, so they're probably not here anymore. This is one of the 2 rattlesnakes in Indiana. We're probably not going to get to the turtles, unfortunately. This is the Massasauga rattlesnake. You can see up at the top there where they're found. Well, that range is almost cut in half because they're losing ground. They like to be in swamps and bogs and places like that, and we're rapidly draining them. But it's our smallest species of rattlesnake. That's some of the habitat where you'll find them. This is the timber rattlesnake. You can see their range is pretty much limited to the Brown County region and on down. Brown County State Park probably has one of the largest concentrations of this species, and Morgan Monroe Forest. Those are the strongholds for the timber rattlesnake. There is one in the center, right there. So you got to watch where you step. They're a pretty passive species. I could talk forever on timber rattlesnakes, but I won't. They have everything going against them, including everyone who sees one. They think they need to kill it. They don't breed until 5 to 7 years of age, and then they breed every 2 to 3 years. So there's where you'll find them if you're really looking for them.
I had a quick question for you with respect to some of the amphibians. So I used those dunks in my little koi pond that I have. Do you know if those are a problem for amphibians?
I've read that they aren't, but they do create a film on top. So I don't know.
Okay.
It might be. That's questionable. I'm not sure, but I've heard that they're not a big problem with amphibians.
Okay. Anybody else with a question for Jim to put in the chat before we say goodnight? I did have another quick question. So what is the most abundant species of, we'll just go with snakes in the state, and what's the most rare?
The most abundant would be the northern water snake, followed by the garter snake. The most rare, oh my gosh. Oh, probably the Massasauga rattlesnake. That's one of the most rare. Or the Butler's garter snake, which is a rare, kind of a rare one. It hasn't been seen in a long, long time. Those are probably the most rare in the state.
And if you could have somebody, our listeners, do one thing to help herps along, what would you suggest for us to do for our personal yards? Or
create habitat. Yeah, create habitat. There are too many things to mention, but yeah, or help them along and join an organization like the Native Plant Society or the Indiana Wildlife Federation, things like that, where these people buy land and set it aside for these animals, but they need it. They really need it. With all the development going on everywhere, including my town of Zionsville, it's just expanding like crazy. And these animals have nowhere to go. They fall under the plows of development. Yeah. Excuse me. It's really sad. But yeah, create habitat.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate your presentation, and I learned a lot of new things. And I saw a lot of species in your pictures that I didn't even know we had.